not too long ago, I read this post on the internet, and someone said sort of a similar thing, that he was very socially awkward, and he said, "Well, alcohol, it makes me feel good. It lowers my anxiety, and well, I mean,
Reduces inhibitions as
well,
well.
guys, I can't drink alcohol every day, so is there like another drug or a supplement that I can take that does the same?" And I thought, well, that's literally the opposite of what you'd want to do, right? It's literally the opposite, because the reason you are socially awkward is because you're not putting yourself out there enough. You're not breaking your comfort bubble enough, right?
It's a muscle.
That's the truth. You just need to keep breaking your comfort bubble, and slowly over time, you will become more comfortable with things like social situations. And if you're looking for a drug, or even if it's not literally a drug, but another form of covering up, like smoking or whatever, to make yourself look cool, you're sort of avoiding the actual problem.
Yeah, 100%. And I really, that made me think of a story. I used to have this friend who I lived with in second year of university, and he was the type of guy. I was actually so lucky that I lived with this guy, because he kind of got me out of my comfort zone in that way. And he would always approach women and make a mark to make conversation with them, regardless if they were attractive or not. And I always used to ask him, I was like, I won't say his name. I always used to ask him, I was like, why are you always talking to these, these birds that, I mean, I'm sure they're nice people, but they're not, particularly attractive.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget what he said to me. He was always like, if I stop doing that, then I'll lose my ability to go up to really attractive women as well.
Yeah.
And that kind of clicked for me. And what I was going back to saying is that it's a social muscle. The ability to just walk up to a random person on the street, or somebody in a social gathering, introduce yourself, just say, "Hello, my name's Joseph. What's your name?" Like that's a skill.
Yeah.
And the more repetitions you kind of get with doing those kinds of actions, you'll find those social situations, you'll enter those social situations with far less negative emotion.
Yeah.
Far less.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many people these days that call themselves an introvert. And I'm not trying to say that I don't think there are genetic differences. Some people might be more naturally introvert than others. But I think the truth is that 99% of people these days that call themselves an introvert, they simply live a lifestyle where they constantly isolate themselves. They never actually practice. They've never actually gathered the balls to talk to a strange girl on the streets, and ask her out or something. And so it makes sense that you haven't trained these mental muscles. You've never, I mean, you've turned yourself into an introvert, right? It's practically the same thing as spending an entire lifestyle eating shitty foods and never exercising, and then becoming fat, right? And then like, oh, but I'm fat. I can't exercise because I'm fat. But the reason you're fat is because you constantly live this lifestyle where you turned yourself fat, right? And being an introvert is essentially the same thing for most people. The reason you're an introvert is because you literally spend your whole life isolating yourself, being too afraid to actually break your comfort bubble and go into social situations.
And I like what you said there about turning yourself into some of these particular, titles or identity. So the thing that kind of came to mind there was, watch how you talk to yourself as well. Watch how you describe yourself to other people. Introverts exist, and I would self-profess, myself an introvert. But if I'm constantly reaffirming introversion qualities, how do you think that's going to affect my thinking and my actions in those social situations? I'm going to be more timid. I'm going to be more anxious because, I'm an introvert.
Yeah.
So stop reaffirming those qualities that aren't congruent with the person that you want to be. There are opportunities for you to exercise more extroverted qualities.
Yeah.
But it starts by just monitoring your self-talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, I agree. I mean, I definitely think that some people are more introverted than others, but I also believe that lifestyle slash mindset plays such a big role on how you actually end up living your life. I think that even if you are a natural introvert, that with the right mindset, with the right lifestyle, you should be capable of living fine, right? You should be capable of handling social situations just fine while not feeling completely anxious and stuff. If you genuinely feel just terribly anxious in a social situation, then it's not just your genetics. It is largely your genetics and mindset as well. I firmly believe that.
100%.
Because I've had ups and downs.
Nature and nurture, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had the ups and downs in my life. As a teenager, I was never really socially awkward and anxious. I didn't care. You know, the whole high school knew me as the crazy guy that ran around naked through the school. I didn't care about anything. Then in my late teens, early 20s, that was the phase where I just did nothing but smoke weed and isolate myself and played video games. I turned into an introvert. I became so socially awkward that my brother and we used to fight over who had to go to the store because we were too anxious to have that 2-sentence conversation with the cashier, right? That's how bad it was. And then I decided to change my life again. And now suddenly I am no longer an introvert. I mean, maybe I am a bit more of an introvert than average. You know, I value my alone time a bit more, but I don't struggle with social situations. I'm not anxious. I'm confident. You know, I'm handling myself fine. So I've had the ups and downs. I wasn't an introvert first, then I was an introvert, and then I wasn't an introvert anymore. And if I look back on these phases, it was simply my lifestyle and my mindset. It wasn't actually my genetics that changed. It was mindset and lifestyle.
There's a couple things there. First, I was just thinking, it's curious the terminology, introversion and extroversion. I'd be interested to kind of see or hear your definition on it. So my definition, or the best definition that I've heard about it, was that introversion is where you get energy outside of social situations, but extroversions get energy in social situations.
Yes.
So like if you've ever been socializing for, like if I'm out with a group of people for like 6 hours a day, I will find that very emotionally, physically, mentally tiring, really tiring. And I will have to excuse myself after those 6 hours, or at least get a break to be by myself or alone. But extroversion, they seem to gain more energy the longer and longer they're in people's presence. I'm curious if you've heard that definition before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I think that makes a lot of sense, but I can see the exact same pattern in my life again. I still, when I spend a lot of time with other people, I can really think, well, I could use some time for myself. I would prefer some time for myself right now. But it's not nearly as bad as during this phase in my life where I isolated myself more. Back then, I would spend a very short amount of time, even with my friends. And then I thought, I wish I was back at home playing video games.